questions about them. Over the 3 days, we're going to focus on two aspects. In today's session, we're going to focus particularly on embedding the literacy teaching in your teaching work. So what will it look like when your students are doing it? And then we'll branch out from that for the remaining two sessions. Just before we do launch into the materials in the notes, I thought it'd be good just to review some of the key aspects of literacy that we have been talking about. Now, Helen said, students' knowledge of literacy, what does it look like? And the model that we've been developing is that when you engage in being literate, what you're doing is building knowledge about a text. You're working through a text and you're building ideas about it. And you're building ideas in a number of different ways. Was that okay? And so the literacy actions that we're targeting are things like how children go about representing words or individual units of meaning, how they go about representing sentences, topics, paragraphs, and so on. And also how they go about managing and directing this reading activity. So when Giovanna said making the things explicit, and I teach a class, say, at Thornbury or a class at Reservoir District or whatever, one of the questions I'm going to ask the students, and some of you have seen me do this, where I've asked the students early in the session is, we're going to read this text. What are some actions you're going to use as you read it? In order to make this management of the activity explicit, if the students can tell me what actions they're going to use, then they're going to be more able to work through the text. But again, to make links with other areas of teaching, if I were teaching maths, as you know, I was a maths teacher, if I was teaching maths, before I had children work through a maths task, I'd have them tell me what they were going to do. Because if I have people saying what they're going to do, they're more likely to do it. As a young teacher, when I left secondary to teach in special schools, I very soon learnt that if I didn't have the children tell me what they were going to do, then they'd be off task in no time flat. If I had students say where they'll be going, what they'll have in 2 minutes' time, how they're going to do it, they're more likely to stay on task and end up with an outcome. So one aspect of this explicitness is the students being able to tell me what they know about being literate. That's going to be a critical thing for us. And another aspect of our literacy knowledge is being able to integrate all of those, because we made a big deal in our literacy work of saying you don't do all of these things, starting off at the word, then at the sentence and so on. You don't do it like that. We use all of those things at once when we read. Now, we need to teach some of them in bits because there's too much to teach at once. And if we want the kids to be explicit, they can be explicit about one bit at a time. But we must always make sure we put Humpty Dumpty back together and that we keep integrating those things. So when we say, what does literacy knowledge look like? We're in a position to say, this is what it does look like. It looks like being able to tell yourself what words say. It looks like being able to remember their meanings, suggest synonyms for them, visualise them. What do they mean? It means, when we read a sentence, being able to paraphrase it, say what question it answers. It means, after reading a paragraph, what was the main idea here? It means very early in the piece saying, I think the text is about this. I think it was written for these reasons. So really being clear on the what knowledge that we're aiming for. The second aspect of our literacy was the idea of the reader linking what they already know with the text. So early in the piece, early in any lesson, it's me trying to stimulate what the students already know. It's me saying that what the children learn in my lesson depends on what they already know and how well I bring that out. How will I stimulate that? And there was that other aspect at the end of the lesson where I want the students to store the ideas in their memory before they leave me. Remember we've talked about that? At the end of the lesson, what do they know now that they didn't know earlier? We talked about the knowledge book. We talked about making sure whatever activities you use, you have the students saying what they know now. Perhaps visualising what they've learnt. Being able to say what questions they could answer. There's a whole lot of activities I can use. But if at the end of every lesson I have the students drawing in the new knowledge, very quickly they'll learn how to do this for themselves. And that's part of this integrating. That was that integrating we saw on the slide just before this. So how we have the students integrate their knowledge. Now, you're all happy with these things, aren't you? Say if you're not. Because these are the explicit things, Giovanna, that we need in the lessons. Sorry, Giovanna. Okay. Now, we also have our set of teaching procedures that we're wanting to use to teach these. These are the arrows we're firing at the students, aren't they? These are the things we're doing to try to induce the children to do the literacy actions that we saw earlier. And we've developed them in a particular order only because it's an order that matches how we'd go about learning them bit by bit. We could modify bits of the order if we wanted to. And we then also talked about, in our explicit teaching, 3 phases through which we'd go through if we're wanting our students to change their knowledge and end up knowing new things. We start off with what they already know. So early in the piece, my teaching is along the lines of getting their knowledge ready. Their word knowledge ready, their sentence knowledge ready, what they think the topic is, the questions they think it will answer, all those things, getting their knowledge ready. Here we're going to have them linking the ideas that they've learned or building new ideas in different ways. We're going to have them doing various actions. We're going to have them acting on the ideas in various ways to build new knowledge. And here we're going to have them sorting out the key ideas, saying what they've learnt, linking it with what they already knew, storing it in memory, automatising it, all of those things that go on here. So if we were going to say, what would any lesson look like that was operating in terms of what we're pushing for the activity zone work, we should be able to see these 3 phases, shouldn't we? Is that okay? As a way of looking at a lesson, or 2 lessons or whatever, or a unit, we should be able to see that pathway. So when you're having dialogue with your colleagues, when you're helping them look at reflecting on their practice, you will be looking at how well, early in a session, they bring together what they know and how well do they help the children see that their existing knowledge about a topic is relevant and valued. And at the end of the lesson, how well the teachers go about bringing it together, having the children walk out of the room being able to say, this is what we know now. So what we're doing is we're making our schools have a very explicit knowledge enhancement focus. That's our whole purpose. That's what we're interested in, the children carrying new knowledge.